Now, I want to talk to you with your Shadow Culture Secretary hat on, because you're launching an independent review panel into the BBC. One of the things that you want it to look into is ensuring the BBC is independent of government. Do you think the BBC is independent of government right now?
Well, I think there are some perception challenges, at least, in that regard. And the reason that I've launched this independent review panel today with some very preeminent people from the industry working with me, who are going to make recommendations and advise Labour on the future direction, is because the BBC does face a number of headwinds. But we're sure that, as the Labour Party, that we support a universally funded, public service, publicly funded broadcaster in this country. We think that's absolutely critical. But there are a number of headwinds that it faces. It's got a charter renewal coming up. There are constant questions around its future funding. This government have basically put the BBC under threat in terms of its future funding. Its independence and impartiality is constantly being questioned and at the centre of culture wars. And of course, in the streaming age, the platform age, the social media age that we are now living in, there are big challenges for the BBC, and that's why I want this panel at this stage to really do some deep policy work for Labour on these issues, so that we can secure the future of the BBC, not just to survive, but to thrive into the next generation.
I'm still a little bit unclear on what the answer to the initial question was about the independence of the BBC, because you say that there's a perception issue. You said that the independence is being questioned. Do you think it's independent of government? You've called for the chairman, Richard Sharp, to resign.
Well, I think that there have been serious issues lately. Obviously, there are a number of issues around the appointment process of the chair, which is now under investigation because I asked for that investigation, because quite clearly the relationship between the chair that was appointed and the then Prime Minister was one a lot closer and involved a lot of financial issues that we weren't aware of at the time. The appointment of other members of the board of the BBC, but also this keeping, I think what we've seen from this government in particular is keeping the BBC at heel by constantly threatening its future. So this time last year, the then Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries said that the licence fee settlement would be the last licence fee as we know it. And that in the future there would be some other way of funding the BBC, yet they've said nothing about that. They were supposed to bring in a media bill to secure prominence of the BBC. They've not done that. There are constant threats that are hanging over the BBC, and the charter renewal coming up in the next few years is another one, which I think is a way in which this government is trying to keep its foot on the throat of the BBC.